I guess the analogy is we have to move this podcast studio.
What?
This podcast studio represents everything about our thing, but we have to move and we have to fit it all into your 2-seater. That's asking your car to do too much. So think about it like if the logo is a container for your stuff, and know that you don't need to fit everything into your logo.
Yeah.
You have a brand to do that.
Welcome to the Marketing Team of One podcast, where we have conversations about the issues one-person marketing teams face when trying to meet their goals with limited time and budgets. Now here's your hosts, Eric and Mike. Mike, the word on the street is you hate design. That's basically...
Oh, I hate design.
You hate design, yeah. That's what I've heard. Prove me wrong.
It's hard to say because if people ask me what I do, I'd say I'm a designer.
Yeah.
So that's a really, but I can see how the word is on the street that's the case. Yeah. I think a lot of this episode here will be me sorting out my feelings on and out in the open for everybody about the role of, namely graphic design. I'm not talking about like functional design. Well, I need to get on record and say that I don't hate design. I absolutely don't. I actually love it. That's the career I've had forever. I love it. But I'm sorting out my feelings about where it sits in my hierarchy of importance.
It's complicated.
It's very complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a love-hate sometimes. Definitely. I mean, everybody probably experiences that, heart surgeons. I hate this. You know.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody didn't survive, something like that.
Yeah. There's the peaks and valleys.
So it's good you're on the crying couch, the therapy couch.
Yeah. This
might be, this.
We've actually I think it's fair to say we faked the crying in a few episodes.
Well, I don't want to, break down the fourth wall because, I think my performances have probably been pretty award-winning.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying I can really channel that.
Yeah. As
a designer who struggles with design on a fairly daily basis, I cry.
I don't know if I'll be crying, right. But it might happen.
Okay. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Could happen at the end. So if you tune out before it's over, your struggle with design is not so much that you hate design or anything like that. I was, of course, joking, but it's more about the levels of hierarchy or the levels of importance that people put on design.
I think my biggest struggle is this tension between like practicality and craft.
Good.
The practical side of my brain thinks about how the things that we put out into the world are received by most people who are there. And of course, we're spending as creators hundreds of times longer creating the thing than the people who receive the thing. And we notice a lot of things. That's our job. It's our job to notice those things, right? And that a lot of those things are the craft and everything. But I think my challenge right now is where's the craft worth it and when is it not? And everybody's line for that is going to be completely different.
Well, and where that line falls depends on a lot of different factors. Of course, audience, of course, purpose and goal, but is like time spent on it as part of one of those calculating things that you would consider? Like, I'm going to spend 40 hours on this E or this letter. Is that where
I'm trying not, I know that like good things can take time, right? But are you spending the time in a way that is going to be ultimately noticed by a broad, so it's like, it's a forest through the trees.
Where do we want to spend those valuable resources? And sometimes I think that's why we get stuck on social media in general, because we're craftspeople. We want to craft everything and make it clean, and it takes time. And the ROI on that effort, that hour you spent, which, when you have a team of people, that is a cost. That person costs you, could be $100 an hour, Was that extra hour they spent on that post, that photo, that little piece that just got scrolled by your audience, was it worth it? That's where it's almost a question of efficiency in business operations at that point, where it's like, really think of yourself as like a laser beam that has a set amount of power behind it. And you got to think very intelligently on how you're going to execute that power on whatever you're doing, maybe.
Kind of like, do you want to light something up or do you want to cut a hole?
Right. Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the craft needs to be applied. Mm-hmm. But I also think that we need to be really hesitant of, are we smoothing down the rough edges way too much, like to the point?
It's like that analogy I know that Steve Jobs, when he was a young boy, his dad was a cabinet maker, and he enforced this idea with Steve Jobs that even the backs of the drawers needed to be absolutely perfect. Mm-hmm. Nobody saw it.
Yeah.
In the interest of craft, there's, I guess, a philosophical reason for that, but in a commercial world, there's no reason for that, right?
And maybe a lot of it just comes to marketing in general, right? Like, is marketing a place for craft?
Whoa. Boom.
I don't know. I would like to think yes.
We can spend hours and hours perfecting a photo that's going to be used for something super powerful and representative of that organization, but we don't need to do the same thing for a social post.
100%. Yeah.
All right.
You don't want to apply craft to the wrong thing.
Right.
Right. So and do you think part of that though is the physical versus, the tangible versus the not tangible?
I was just going to mention that. I think, you've got social is digital. It's low res. You're on a screen that's this big. There's very little. There's a lot of room for error. There's very little room for error when it's a printed piece that maybe is larger format that has a lot more technical requirements behind that photo to do the job that it needs to do there. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah.
It's so funny because I think a long time ago, they might have said that annual reports were like ephemeral. They're not, but like, it's funny that we're looking at it now and like, no, like I think social posts and stuff are the epitome of ephemeral, right? And this thing that we've put a lot of time and effort and money into crafting.
Because I think of the copy side of things. It's interesting because I know that good copy is really critical. And
it takes time.
Takes time to do it, and it takes time to become effective. I argue, sometimes when we work on an annual report, the copy on the inside is so heavily, it's worked on for months and refined and revisited and checked and all this stuff. Yet the title may not be. The title is just a single word, thrive, or, just pick a word that fits the theme. And that's usually all you need to do. Marry it with a beautiful visual and bingo, you've got a great annual report. Or sometimes there is even no title. But then you think of social media and you're like, okay, the title's got to grab you immediately. It's super critical. So you're going to spend time on the title and not maybe on so much on the content of whatever that social post is, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of it, like where I'm settling now is this idea that we should be applying our craft towards the gut reaction of people who will receive it. You should be focusing on what's the overall impact right away. And if you start I think when you start nitpicking details or you might be putting your focus in the wrong spot.
Well, and some of it comes down to, I think, experience of the person doing it, because as you do this career, your radar gets tuned finer and finer and finer year upon year. There are things that we all can pick out instantly. We can see something in a brand or a design or something like that immediately triggers us because we've been tuned to it for so long. Yep. And we know where the guardrails are, where the danger zones are with color or contrast or all the formalities of design. Yep. So we're well aware of that. I think if you're younger, it's maybe a more difficult thing to really have that radar up at that point. And that's where maybe you need to have another person taking a look at things and feeling better. I mean, I still love to have people take a look at what I do because my radar is tuned into this stuff, and it's still funny how my radar may miss something. So by no means do I feel like I'm perfect at all, but I think that knowing where your radar is tuned is a really critical part to that, because then that'll allow you to efficiently judge or efficiently go ask for feedback so that you don't have to, post that one thing that burns down the company accidentally. To paraphrase one of the great philosophers, I think really the best way to sum that up is to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
It's so funny. Like the internal, like, back and forth. I'm like, he's going to quote a philosopher. No, it's going to be somebody like Bill and Ted or something like that. And then I'm like, no, it's going to be a philosopher again. And then Ice Cube. I love it.
We'll stay focused on, to see the emotional range that your face goes through during that.
Yeah. Sometimes when you come into the stuff new, that you can dive really far into some of these details and try and put your thumb on the scale for some things that sometimes as the creator or something can be really frustrating because that they don't seem to have the effect of making the overall product better. That it's really like muddying the waters or just introducing a lot more like
confusion, too much stuff,
sand in the ball bearings, or like
the art of creating is about getting deep into something and then pulling way back and then going deep and pulling way back. It's like that's for me a lot of how I like to create, and I think a lot of people on our team do. And pulling back, part of that process is to get other people and other voices involved. And I think that's something that maybe we should recommend is if you don't have kind of a safe group of people that you can kind of bounce stuff off of and really respect their opinions and understand what they see. And I don't even mean like designers or other copywriters or other marketers, like really, pull from other people. There's a wide variety of opinions that really matter. And in fact, ignorance is a superpower sometimes when it comes to this stuff. So pull from people that represent your audience who may not know anything about what you're doing. Sometimes it's nice to, you kind of have to have that curated group of people or person that can bring that kind of feedback to you in a healthy way. But getting that feedback, I know for me, I love working with a team. I don't ever feel like any of the design work that I create or a lot of the stuff that I create is mine. Like by no means. Like I can push things over a finish line, but it's a group effort of all these other voices and people and influences that help create really good design. And it goes quicker too. That's the thing too that I love about it is like I could be milling on something and boom, trying hours and hours and hours, and then pull back and bring in another group and they're like, oh yeah, that's bing, bang, boom. And 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, that's what was locked in my head that I could not get out. But thank you for that feedback. And again, that feedback can come from anybody. I show stuff to my wife. I show stuff to everybody that they're non-designers.
I think that's super valuable too. Like, because for most of us, the work we're doing is not intended for designers.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so, I think the user experience peeps out there, they've got it really right. And like, so my argument for craft and my argument for creating for the gut reaction, the people you're sending to, I think they've really got it right. Like, and they're that you can apply the craft, but they're also applying user testing. They're getting things right in front of people all the time. Get that feedback. We've done sessions where we just had 5 people review stuff that we did.
Yeah.
And after the third person, you're like, oh yeah, that's the perception that's out there on this thing. I like your analogy of like going deeper and then backing back out. But like, I think we need to have a healthy understanding of the back out is where we're where the audience is.
Yes.
They're not down in here.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that the craft can happen here, but let's not lose sight of this up here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's the most important piece of it. Obviously, we all love to get in there and, roll up our sleeves and like, all right, I'm going to make this perfect,
Yeah.
Okay. It's perfect for you. And sometimes the hard part is, a lot of times it's not perfect for everybody else. So you may love it, but we're in a commercial professional service. Like we got to answer to an audience and a customer and other people that, they're the ones that matter. That's the difference between like being an artist in a sense and being a professional service like we are. So.
Yeah. With a brand, there's a number of different things when we're setting up a new brand that we're trying to focus on, right? Like, so we're going to start out up front. We want to know what's the core values of the company that we're working at. What's their mission? What do we do? We want to make sure that there's no doubt what they actually do, right? We want to communicate. We do a lot of work to talk about how they want to be portrayed in the marketplace and how can they be differentiated from competitors and in the marketplace.
Super
right?
important.
So that's all this like foundational strategy side of things, right? And then we will get rolling. And there's other pillars of the brand, right? We've got the messaging. What are the words that are used to describe that brand? In some cases, if you're creating a new brand, you're coming up with the name of the brand. Then you're coming up with logo. Maybe it's the logo mark. Then there's the typefaces that support it and everything. And when we get too mired in the depths, and especially, I would say we do this with clients a lot. And when the clients can't see the forest for the trees, that's when I think we need to go start dragging ourselves up, dragging them up. And I'm like your bosses, if they get too mired in that, like trying to say, here's the context in which this exists. Like right now, I know we're not working on anything else. We're only working on this one messaging thing, but really no one's just going to read that and they're not going to spend longer than it takes to read it.
That's the thing.
Sit with it.
Yeah,
right?
you're building a whole culture in a sense, right? With all these things. And yes,
they are important. I don't want to diminish the importance of it, but I think we have to find the balance. And I'm struggling with the balance. So when I talk, when the word on the street gets out there that I hate design, it's not that I hate design. I'm struggling with the balance of design in the context of all the other things that are a successful brand.
It's a tough struggle because I know that when we work with clients on branding stuff specifically, they really want to get in there with you too, because they know the weight of what you're working on,
Or it's a break from and it's fun. It's fun. They might think it's fun. Like, hey, this is an opportunity to, I'm not a creative, but hey, here's my chance to.
So that's what we have to kind of regulate with them and set up a lot of boundaries around when that and how that can happen, because it can get addictive and it can get, they get into the weeds immediately because they're also untrained in design. So they don't realize as much the gut. And this is how I start off every branding presentation, round one. We really limit what we're showing because we do a lot of pre-work. Like you just said, we go through all those different things so that by the time we start developing visuals, we're not like scatter shot. Here's 25 ideas. We hope one of these lands. We are very strategic in how we're doing this already. And there is no surprises on it. But the one thing I do have to tell every client when we do this is pay very close attention to the first 1 to 2 seconds that you see this and experience this. Yep. You're seeing it for the first time. It's like, seeing a new planet it's that big. I would put that kind of weight on it. So you need to pay attention to what is your gut, because that's where your audience is going to live.
Yep.
Your audience isn't going to sit there and look at your logo for hours on end and say, just if you could make that one, one tick. Oh, they don't care. They just look at it it's a gestalt moment, right? That phrase, it's an instantaneous reaction. It's the gut. That's really what you need to pay the most attention to. If something triggers you immediately, like, oh my gosh, that color is terrible. okay, good. Then we'll change it. That makes sense. But if you're working on it and looking at it, and after 2 hours, you're like, now that color is kind of just, I don't know that that's as important of information as it was those first 1 to 2 seconds you saw that color for the first time.
And this is, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, because I think that if it is your brand and your work, you have to live it. You might see it plastered on your wall as you walk into the office every day, right? So you have to be comfortable with it.
Well, it gets to also like things that have a big personality, brand, words, websites, visuals, video, all that stuff that has a big personality tends to wear on you over time. And so that's another strategic decision you need to make. And that's why you see a lot of logos tend to move into this very vanilla, plain, just typeset the font in the name of Facebook or whatever, because there's no feelings get hurt.
Yeah.
Nobody's like irritated by that over staring at it. Like you said, the example you used, I'm looking at the Facebook logo my whole life. Okay, well, it's not going to make you angry. But it's not also going to make you feel anything either. It's going to be like, okay, good. That didn't hurt my feelings. We can move on with my scroll or whatever.
I'm curious. I'm dead inside. I just want to preface this, right?
We know that.
Yes.
Everybody. Yeah.
But have you ever seen a logo and you felt like, and you're a designer, have you ever seen a logo and felt something?
Just the ones I've designed.
Oh, well, yeah.
I feel amazing, of course.
Yeah.
It's not just the logo represents a feeling in my head. And if it's a positive thing, then then I have this like, oh, I love that thing. Yeah. Maybe I don't love it on a like structural basis, but I love it on a brand visceral feeling experience level, because they're all supported, and this is speaks to a good brand, right? Yep.
Because you also you're being brought into what that brand is representing.
Yeah.
Right. And so that the logo is part of that. Yeah. And the ones you're going to get bought into are going to be more holistic.
I would say, like, if we want to talk like design, and I'm talking like all different types of design, really the only ones that probably have that simple type of reaction I think you're talking about would be things like architecture. That's why some elevate architecture to, a higher level. They're a combination of art and commercial and science, engineering and everything. When you walk into a space, it doesn't matter what the logo is on the wall. If it's an amazing, transit center or airport or some big public space, you're just like, there's nothing.
You can't help but have the reaction.
You just have this reaction to it. I would say movies are another way. Movies represent brand in a way. I mean, there's tons of movies that have a brand essence to them. And
that's all movies nowadays.
Yeah, but video has that effect too, because it's a combination of so many different things. And it's kind of scientifically engineered to draw up emotion. That's the thing that makes it. Nobody wants to sit through a movie that is like, all right, is this over yet? Because I put in my time. Are they paying me to watch this? Because I'm really out of here. That's not why they make movies. So those are the two things to me that I would say I have that visceral effect on me. I'm visually sensitive and have a radar that's tuned way too high for most mortals. So yes, there are logos that I see, but again, I would attribute a lot of my emotional reaction to the structure or the look or the color of that brand. Some of that is the brand itself, the language of the brand, the essence, the feeling,
But I think gut reaction, right? We've talked in the past about how you refuse to go to a restaurant because the logo is so bad.
And I was just at a design conference last week talking to another designer. They live in my town. Yeah. Same reaction, same actions. They will not go eat at that restaurant.
So you're building a coalition.
Yes.
All right.
I have another.
But I think I'm going to stand on your. I'm going to I'm still Swiss on the. I'm very Swiss on this argument.
The logo. Okay, so yeah, like I talked about what I react to. Did you want to talk?
But I want to say, like, as a neutral party here in the wars of bad logos and stuff like that.
Yes,
I'm going to fight for the craft side of things because I think like you're right that first impression. The gut reaction you got from that is, I'm not going there. That's super important. And there are going to be non-designers that influences that there might be non-designers that don't want to go to that restaurant. I
sure hope so. Please.
Because it says a certain thing about that brand because of what they've done.
It's weird because I look at that brand again and it's like, I don't even react to like the formalities of it instantly. Like I go back to my reaction to it when I first saw it. It was just like, nope. Oh, like it was literally less than a second.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you look at it again. If you can't, like, it's like looking at the sun, it burns my eyes. I kind of have to look through like a plate of like welder's glass to look at it just to protect my own, mental health.
The mediocre and the excellent can be seen as very close to one another in the eyes of people that are out there.
Agreed. Yeah.
That the bads truly stand out.
Yes.
The bad, but there's a very mushy middle that might get lumped into the excellent. I'm talking from a visual perspective for the most part.
I would agree. I agree because
but that doesn't make me feel great about.
But it goes back to that idea of like good enough beats best and that's like a business theory, right? Like it's like minimum viable product. If it's cheaper and quicker and easier, unfortunately, sometimes that beats out the greatest refined thing. Now, I would argue that a brand personality, by refining their logo to a point that is elevated above and beyond, shows how much they care about their customer and their audience. Yeah. And so that maybe is the differentiator between, but if you're comparing, garage door opener companies, one to the next, you're like, sure, that one's fine. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, look at the logo on that. Does it do its job? It's a very utilitarian example. Correct. I know, but you know what I'm saying is like, make a list of what the most important things they think are for that specific channel or how what their outreach is. How are you going to use your limited resources? We all have limited resources to the best of your ability and make those decisions strategically so that you are spending a lot of time on the things that have the biggest impact.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not the logo. Sometimes it's not the color. Sometimes it's the copy. We talk about things as like disposable design and long-term or legacy design. Those are kind of the two ways we look at things. I would say ads and social media are disposable, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Brand is legacy. So you're going to want to spend a lot of time on that, and that's where you can get sucked into that hole.
Yeah. What are some examples of brands that everyone you talk to, when you say what brand do you admire, or which one do you?
Well, of course,
Apple, Nike. Yeah. Like how often have they changed? It's our job as experts probably to remind people of that like a successful brand is something that you're not. That exists below everything.
Well,
but then some of the identity things are, you want to get right because it should last a long time. And sometimes, getting in deep and trying to throw the kitchen sink at things, you're applying it at the wrong place.
That was what I was going to get into, is like with so many organizations want to put every story element of their whole background into a logo because they can't forget. And there's a lot of different reasons. I get that. You kind of get, we're all about these 4 different factors, so they need to be in the logo. Well, you just illustrated a great point, is like, are all those elements inside of, like, is there an iPhone on the Apple logo? That's the most important product they make. It's right. Like, no, it's not part of it, but why are they leaving that out? Like that's an extreme example, but yeah, the temptation is to throw kitchen sink And some of it's political, well, this person's on the board, so we need to show this element because that needs to represent their interests somehow. And that just waters it down and doesn't make it really fit.
I guess the analogy is we have to move this podcast studio, right?
What?
Here's the thing.
Wait.
But we have to move. And we have to fit it all into your 2-seater. That's asking your car to do too much.
Good point. Okay.
Right? So think about it like if the logo's a container for your stuff, and know that you don't need to fit everything into your logo.
Yeah.
You have a brand to do that. Your brand there's all the other different points. And yes, they should all be working in harmony, but let's not
kitchen sink it. I think that's a universal temptation. I mean, we are always wanting to do that. I mean, I'm still tempted by that when I do some creative work, I can't make those decisions. I have to, and that's what's helpful about bringing in this kind of council of experts or non-experts to say, like, is that really part of, like, why is that in there? Like that little thing? Like that, I don't even know why that's in. Why is that in there? Then take it out. You don't need that stuff in there.
Logo does not sit above the brand. It is one piece of the brand. Why would we isolate that one thing? Like,
love it. Yeah.
It should be as a whole because and show that there's the different pieces that taken together, and maybe it takes some pressure off your 2-seater car from holding everything, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like there's the name because that needs to exist. Just typeset in copy name. Then there's the logo, the symbol of it.
Yep.
Then there's the brand and all the elements that are around it. But
the identity of the brand.
Yeah, the identity, which includes all those elements, how it's utilized on your business card, let's just say, for an example. But there's all the different applications, how website, blah, blah, blah. All, where are we going to see the brand? Shirts, everything. But the biggest portion of that is the application of it all.
Yeah.
It's where is that put out there? Where is that? That's the most important piece of it because you can have a brand that nobody sees, but if you've got a name that's powerful or, you can kind of play with all of those different aspects of it, but the application of it is the most important piece of that whole puzzle.
I'm getting more specific examples, right? That we see repeated over and over again, right? Like California based. And we do a lot of work with associations and other regional players, right? That might represent the interests of people statewide, right?
Yep.
And so when we inevitably in almost any logo or branding conversation, we need to fit the outline of the state
of California
in this.
It's a beautiful profile to try to work with.
Yes, it's identifiable.
Yeah.
Is it unique?
No,
not whatsoever. As a designer, it's really hard to work with, man. It's not balanced.
No.
I mean, do designers in Idaho have this problem?
That's a weird looking shape.
But like,
sorry, all of our Idaho listeners. But why? Why?
We're trying to put too much on the logo. I think that we have to communicate that we do business in California. We have to communicate that we're looking out for the interests of our trade group. They represent truckers who move agriculture products throughout the state, right? So just in that example right there, a common place to go with that is we need to have the state of California. We need to show a truck, a big rig in there, probably an 18-wheeler.
Yep.
But they might have electronic products. We need to show that we have some organic pieces and everything. Like that's asking a lot for a mark that should show up this big on most things.
That's what we,
right?
and that's when we show brand. We're like, here's a one color reversed out of a pen. That's your logo should still have some sort of identifiable.
I think one of the most visible things that people have out there is a website, right?
Right.
What's the next thing that people see when everybody takes a kind of Z pattern looking through websites, right? They look up here and usually there's that hero section, right? Like, okay, if you want to convey a big rig truck driving through California with some agriculture products in it. You can do that in the photo. The photos are a big piece of the brand.
A lot
that
more
could
effective.
Do that.
Yeah.
Way
That's
more effective.
way better. Yeah.
And it's not carrying nearly as much weight. So you have all these other opportunities to express your brand. It doesn't have to all be in the logo.
Good.
But if we show it in the context in which it's shown everywhere else, I think that helps take the pressure off of it.
Yeah.
And maybe helps avoid the
over processing, over analyzing, move this thing here. The logo can't live without this brand concept behind it. And everybody, I think, is working towards that on some level. But that's the hard thing is like, there's a lot of work that goes into supporting a brand, and that application piece of it, that never goes away. That's something that your whole organization or your communications and marketing team is, and you as one are focused on, is that application and getting that word out there for everything. So you don't hate design.
I don't hate design. I love
that's
it.
Good.
Whew. I want everyone to know that.
Okay.
I just think I think we need to just keep in mind the gut, like people's gut reaction, and apply the craft towards that gut reaction. And if it's not going to go towards that gut reaction, that we really should be scrutinizing what where it goes.
And to refine the gut necessarily isn't the designer's gut. The gut begins with the designer gut, but that gut is shared with the audience, the general audience, and their
gut reaction,
their
to
gut.
Things. Yeah.
So it's shared guts.
We've got guts all over the place here.
This is getting messy, but
very messy. Oh, yeah.
You're not going to pull out a get your gut thing on me. You know how you always get my goat by saying stuff gets my goat.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Not today, at least.
You're not going to get my gut.
No. As an industry, as people dealing with marketing, there's definitely a place for craft, but let's make sure that it's applied towards that, improving that gut reaction.
Okay. Do you feel better, Mike? Do you feel like you can now go about your day and have a much more healthier perspective?
Yep.
Okay. Not that you didn't before. I'm just saying like,
no, I think
this is helpful.
And as long as I don't get drugged too deep,
yes,
we're going to be in good shape.
Okay. So you're a floater on top kind of a guy.
Keep an eye on the top.
Okay.
Like I'm a scuba diver with limited oxygen in my tank.
Snorkeler, even better. Okay.
I'm snorkeling.
Good.
Yeah.
Audience.
I want to go deep.
Right.
But I know I need to get out.
I can be a scuba diver at times, I know.
Yeah.
But really we need to listen to the person in the floaty sitting up in the ring with the pina colada.
Think of the broad. Think of how people will take it. And I think another good takeaway is get it in front of people, even get it in front of the people who aren't as close to it as often as possible. And don't ask for deep feedback. Ask for their gut reaction on things.
Okay. That's good.
I think that would help a lot of people.
Sounds like a good place to end the podcast, Mike. Thanks for your insights. I'm glad you're going to be settled and psychically neutral.
Thanks for giving me a new band name. That would be a good band name.
Psychically neutral?
Yeah. I don't know what kind of band.
Yeah. I thought of another one that I thought was a funny band name. But then I thought maybe it's more of like a good album name, because that's always the problem. You go back.
Which ones? Which?
Yeah.
Would I build a brand around psychically neutral? No. Would I build a campaign around it? Yes.
So it's more of an album name.
It's an album name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My album name was, or maybe it's a band name, because you could kind of build you can build a lifestyle around this. Loose Stools. Came out of a visit to my doctor.
The genre I think of is kind of like Guar-esque. Very theatrical.
Oh, yeah.
Very gross.
Oh, absolutely.
Very tongue-in-cheek.
But The visual is just a stool. Maybe one leg is shorter than the other. See, and then the album is like a Andy Warhol, like a silkscreen print of that, just the stool. And then the stage design, just 2 or 3, however many people are in our band. I would imagine so many people would probably want to join, right? You probably have to make room for 8 or 9 people up on stage. But the curtain rises and it's just 8 stools.
Yeah.
Except they kind of, when people sit on them, they kind of like, like those tables at restaurants where you're like, can somebody get a napkin? Yeah.
I imagine this band is made up of 3 people who were alive and well and thoroughly enjoyed the original like punk scene with the Ramones in the day and have not let go.
Right. Good.
To this day. So they're 70s.
Yeah, they're getting up there. Yeah.
They've got a good sense of humor about their place in it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of punk.
They perform, but they have to sit on stools because they're not quite that healthy yet.
Yes.
Anymore. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is the power of brand. We've built an entire universe. Yeah. We built a world.
Maybe we do a music video with the video AI tools.
Well, Mike, sounds like you're in a good place. Sounds like it's a good place to end the podcast for today. Appreciate all your insights. Thanks again.
Thank you. I'm a changed man. It's all because of the crying couch and you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in. For more information and other episodes, subscribe to the Marketing Team of One podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify podcast networks. You can also chat with us on the r/Marketing Team of One subreddit or visit marketingteamofone.com to learn more.